All right, guys, here we have the MSI VENTUS OCV1 D6 1650. Yes, the title is actually that long. And this is a tale of two cards, a little bit of a story. This might be quite boring, so if you are not into actual details, then just go ahead and close the video now. But a tale of two cards, so disclaimer, I know nothing about GPUs. I have not had a GPU in many years. As I mentioned in the first video where I bought the 1060 for $50, and that started my journey down the rabbit hole of learning about 970s, 1060s, 1660, 13, whatever, 2080s, and on and on and on and on. This is just for budget. So here's what happened. Bought that for $50. Very good deal. 1060 regular, 6 gigabyte. Was happy with that one. And this was in a Optiplex 9010 3rd gen i7. Totally happy. That's fine. So I then bought a Dell Optiplex 5040 so that I could upgrade the tower to something a little bit newer with the 6th gen i5, but those have small power supplies. And of course, if you do this on YouTube, the suggested budget card for a small tower with a small power supply is a 1650. So I bought a Dell XPS 8900, I believe, because it had the 1650 in it. So now let's talk about the 1650 and why this is strange. And then at the end, we'll compare it to the 1060 that I originally had. So of course, the night before I bought this, I watched about 25 different videos reviewing the 1650 and saying how it was a good budget card for the computers that did not have enough power. Okay, now I bought the tower, took it home. I go, wow, this is not like the 1650s that I've seen online. This one has an extra power connector, so how can I put that on my small power supply? And 25 more videos later, 2 days later, we're talking hours and hours of video learning within a short amount of time, probably too much. So what this is this is not a 1650, what you would normally think of as being a 1650. This is a 1650 D6, which means it has DDR6 memory instead of DDR5, like you would find on most of them. When I Google the part number for this particular card, or not Google, but YouTube, if I put in the actual D6 OCV1, all of the videos that I found were in another language. Philippines, Thailand, whatever. I don't know why this is different. Even if you look up an OC XS Ventus on eBay, on Amazon, you get the one that does not have the power connector. So I'm basically just making this video to talk about this particular one. However, this one is still available new on Amazon. If you put in all the parameters, it is still available. It's going for about $180. I think I saw one for $150, and some of them are in the $200 range. And the reason why I wanted to tell you about this is so that you know what you're buying and so that you can watch a video that's not in another language. So the D6 VENTUS XS OCV1, the V1 is important, means that it's a DDR6 1650. It still has the 980 CUDA cores versus the 1200 on the 1060. And it has this power connector. Still not sure why, because when I put this in the system, it only pulls 75 watts. Pulls half from the PCIe It pulls half from the extra connector there. And then the 1650 DDR5 that has the extra power connector, that one pulls 100 watts. Or was it the 16? No, the 1650 Super, I'm sorry. The Super is 100 watts. Anyway, so this card is rated at 75 watts. No matter if I overclock it, no matter if I put the fans on full blast, play a game for an hour, it never pulls more than 75 watts. So if you happen to run into this card, XS OCV1, 4 gigabyte, with the power connector, check the watt rating. Okay, now that's out of the way and what this card actually is. It is a low power card for low power systems, even though it has the 6-pin connector. So now let's talk performance. The 1066 gigabyte, which with the 1200 CUDA cores, if you put it on a benchmark, like for Mark or Heaven, is it Heaven or Haven? This gets more FPS than this one. Just side by side, obviously has more video memory and more CUDA cores. In the games, the frames per second is about 10 FPS less, unless you overclock this, which it does quite well. It gets kind of close to this in a matter where you wouldn't probably notice the difference. And you could overclock this as well, but here's the problem. This, with this tiny little heatsink here, gets really hot. So if you're running at 2000 megahertz, 2 gigahertz, when you're up at the 2000 range, this thing is hot. It's 83 degrees. It'll start throttling at 83. The setting that I found was the best on this was setting the temperature limit to 78, fan speed at 70, and I could hold a solid 1900, 1850, 1900 as far as overclocking goes. Handles everything just fine except, I mean, on lower titles, the only game that I have that's kind of a higher end title is Call of Duty. It struggles on that. It would get about 30 to 35 frames per second with everything on high. This card, it really never goes above 70 Celsius. Overclock, not overclock, fans on, fans off, it just kind of never, it just is solid. I never even heard the fans spin loudly. And on Call of Duty, this runs 40 frames per second versus the 30 here. And then when I overclock it, I was hitting 60 frames. Hit or miss, not all the time. It would bounce between 50 or 60, yet still running cool. So I wonder if it's the technology, this is newer, the faster memory, or is it just the fact that it's running on a 6th gen i5 versus a 3rd gen i7, and maybe the CPU is helping it out a little bit? Not sure. And so the question is, which one would you keep? I think probably this is the smarter choice if you were buying it today, just because this is older and it runs so hot all the time and the constant fan noise with the single fan. Now, if it had a twin fan 1060, that would be different. And this one just kind of, you know, cruising along, low temperature, the fans never really get loud, and it performs close to this one. And it is more expensive though, so that's the problem. This is, you can buy these all day long for $100, but this is gonna set you back 150 unless you get lucky like I did. And one more thing, this version just has an aluminum heatsink, and the other 1650s, you might see the better ones, not this cheap one, would have the copper pipes through it. That's why I'm kind of limited. You can only overclock this just a little bit If you go too much, it just dies. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's an argument to be said either way. I'm going to sell this one just since it's still available new and the market's good. I can get probably at least 100, if not 125 for this. And then the, not this one, but the modified version that I have in my setup right now with the Be Quiet fan and the bigger heatsink. I'm just going to keep that one. Sell this one while the timing's good. I really wanted to upgrade the fans, but I don't want to break the seal and make it all modified and stuff when I can just sell it the way it is. Needs a little cleaning right there. But yeah, what would you choose? Would you choose a 1066 gigabyte, or would you choose a 1650 4 gigabyte, but it's somewhat limited by the low power consumption? I guess it depends on which computer you have. And then the last thing I noticed is this does not have a PWM header. See, it's just straight power. There's a spot for a 4-pin PWM. So I'm kind of curious if, because I've been able to change the fan speed via MSI Afterburner. I wonder if the voltage is controlled somewhere else in here, not by that. But I did notice that you couldn't actually see the RPMs, and that's why, I guess, because it's not reporting back. But the voltage itself is still controlled by something in here. So too bad I can't put in my fan upgrades, because that would have been fun. But all right, there you have it, 1650 versus 1060. This one's better, this one's newer, this one costs more, this one's cheaper. Moral of the story, just get a 1650 Super and don't play around with the 1650. I mean, they're both expensive anyway. Try and get a Super and just have the same CUDA cores as this, and then it's a no-brainer. So there you have it. And then one more thing before we go. I just found out that there's a 1630 new. I have never heard of that in all my searching. A 1630 has 500 CUDA cores. So I'm not sure what that's all about. I'll have to find out and dig more. I guess it's kind of the replacement for the 1050. So hopefully we can get our hands on that one. And all right. So happy GPU searching. These are both for sale. Selling this one for 100. Selling this one for 125. So wish me luck. See you later.